Is there any more of a versatile vegetable than the onion? I don't think there is. I can't think of any other vegetable that's as versatile as an onion. It literally goes in just about anything. Any recipe that I can think of calls for onions. And we really love to grow our onions. And here I've got loads and loads of them which I've grown from seed. I started these around a month ago, just after Christmas, and I'm going to be potting these up into individual cells here. I've got 420 cells here, 5 trays, 84 in each tray. These have been under the grow lights at home now for the last month, and they're just starting to get their second leaves. It's going to be quite a time consuming and tedious job, but it'd be well worth doing. I think it would definitely pay off. I did this last year and the onions did really well last year. Actually had a really good year for onions, and I'm doing them in the exact same way as I did them last year. So in today's video it's just a bit of an onion transplanting vlog video, and I'm going to be giving you loads of information as well about growing onions. So I'm doing my onions from seed. That's the way I like to do it, but you may want to do your onions from sets. But which way is better? Well, there's quite a few differences between doing them from seed and doing them from sets. When growing onions from seed, there's a few benefits to doing this. The first thing is you have many more varieties of onion which you can choose compared to growing them from sets. The second good thing about growing them from seed is it's much more cost effective. A packet of onion seeds might cost you anywhere from £1 to £3, and you're probably going to end up with 200 to 400 seeds per packet, but it depends where you get them from, of course. Whereas if you're buying sets, these may cost you anywhere from £2.50 to £5 for a bag of around 50 sets. Now, another benefit to starting your onions from seed is they're less likely to bolt. An onion is a biennial, which means it grows in its first year of growth, and then in its second year of growth it flowers and produces seed. Now with an onion seed, you're only growing it in one season, so you're going to end up growing your onion plant in the first year and harvesting it in the same year. Whereas with a onion set, it's already got about a year's growth on it. It's already much more established. So you're going to be growing an onion set in its second year of growth, and the onion cycle is produce seed in its second year. So that is going to increase your chances of your onion bolting if you're growing it from a set. And when an onion bolts, it's no good for storage, so you're going to have to harvest it straight away and use it first. Now I like growing onions for storing for winter use, so I don't want my onions to bolt and set seed. So how do you grow your onions? Do you grow them from seed or sets? Let me know in the comments below. So right here, I think I planted around 2,000 seeds. Sounds like a lot, but I think only around 1,000 of them actually germinated. So we've actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trays of onions here. We've got Ayrshire Craig, which is a nice white onion, quite big globe-shaped onions. They don't store quite as well, but they are very nice quality onions. We've got some Santero onions, which are a mildew resistant onion, and they store a bit better than Ayrshire Craig, and they're white onions as well. We've got some mammoth onions here as well. Got a few of those. I'm just trying these just for fun, seeing if we can grow some giant onions this year. There was only about 100 seeds in a packet, and there's not that many that have sprouted, but we'll see what happens with those. Be interesting. We've also got some red Brunswick onions, although they're not doing great. They're doing okay, I suppose, but there's not that many that have sprouted, really. I find that white onions are easier to grow than red onions, to be honest. So I'm going to pot all these up now. It's going to take me a while, so I'm going to speed it up for you all, and I'm going to go over some good information for growing onions as well. How I grow them from start to finish. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this little video. So I sow my onion seeds in trays, and I use cocoa coir to start them in. Cocoa coir is great for starting most seeds in, as it holds moisture very well. It's sterile, cost effective and environmentally friendly as it's a byproduct of the coconut industry. So I love using cocoa coir with a lot of my seeds starting. I spread the seeds evenly over the top of the cocoa coir and then cover the seeds with a layer of vermiculite, which is a naturally occurring phyllosilicate material which helps hold in moisture, increasing seed germination success. It's also a sterile material, just like the cocoa coir, and it can reduce the risk of problems such as damping off. As I start these off early, I leave them at home where it is warm, but onions can germinate in cool temperatures too, so a greenhouse can suffice so long as it doesn't freeze. Onions will germinate in around 7 to 14 days under ideal conditions. I let them grow for around a month under the grow lights at home till they start to grow their second leaves, but of course a sunny windowsill at home should be enough. I then prick the onion seedlings out into individual modules, which is what I'm doing now. I'm just making a hole with a dibber and then gently pushing the roots into the hole before watering them in. I will lose some as roots are quite brittle at this stage, but I have plenty of spare plants to replace any that I do lose, so it's okay. Now I've made my own growing medium for these module trays, and I've just used a 50-50 mix of coconut coir and some Westlands multi-purpose compost, peat-free with added John Innes. So with all being well, in 6 to 8 weeks time, taking us to around late March, early April, I'll have onion plants that will be around pencil thickness and ready to be planted outside. By this point, your sets should also be ready to be planted out if you started them in February or March. They grow much quicker than seed-grown onions to begin with. Spring frosts are very common in my area, but onions don't mind this, so a light frost early in the growing season isn't going to kill your onions off. I'll have already prepared a bed ready for the onions with well-rotted horse manure the previous autumn. I space my onions around 4 inches apart with around 12 inches between rows to allow for easier weeding. Of course, if you want bigger onions, space your plants further apart than 4 inches. As I alluded before, I incorporate well-rotted horse manure into the bed which I grow onions in. If you don't have this, compost should suffice. We have loads of horse manure available though, so I use this. It is full of valuable nutrients, with nitrogen being one of the most important for our onions. Nitrogen means more leaves, and more leaves means more layers. And this means a bigger onion. Each leaf produces an onion layer. You want your onions to grow as many leaves as possible before the days begin to shorten and harvest time approaches. I like to stay away from synthetic fertiliser whenever possible. Bloodfish and bone is an organic fertiliser that I've also used for onions in the past, with positive results. Alternatively, if you aren't going down the organic route, a general onion and leek fertiliser will yield good results. Onions are very thirsty plants and require adequate watering throughout the growing season to do well, especially when the bulbs are swelling rapidly towards maturity. Lack of water can cause many growth issues and can induce bolting, as the onion can go into survival mode and try and produce seed. As I said earlier, removing any bolting onions indicated by a flower stalk being sent up like this. Remove these as soon as possible and use that onion first. Onion seeds will produce an onion ready for harvesting in about 5 to 6 months, and set grown onions in as little as just 3 months. For me, my seed grown onions are harvested around June, July, depending on the weather. Maturity is indicated by the onion not growing any bigger, yellowing of leaves, and the neck of the onion going soft and the foliage flopping over like this. This is not to be confused though with an onion that has just fallen over in the wind. Remember that plenty of water is required just before this time, as the onions will be swelling rapidly just before harvest. When you're sure they're ready, simply pull them up, brush off the dirt and let them cure for around 2 to 3 weeks. Outside if the weather permits, or in the greenhouse or shed if it's wet outside. Make sure it's well ventilated though and doesn't get too hot in there. You don't want to cook your onions yet or risk them rotting. So somewhere that's cool and dry and well ventilated is really important for drying and curing your onions. There are many ways to store your onions: storing them in netted sacks, chopping and freezing them, stringing them up, pickling, canning, the list could go on. My preferred method is to string as many as I can and chop and freeze the rest, especially as some varieties don't store as well throughout the winter. Okay, so I actually had to get it quickly finished there, so I didn't record the last couple of trays because, as you can see, it's getting pretty dark now. It's 4:30 and yeah, that's the problem with this time of year, isn't it? It gets dark really early. But that's now 5 module trays of onions all done now. That's 420 cells. They're not all going to survive. I will lose a few, but there's loads more onions left in these trays to replace them. So I'll replace the odd few that I'll lose, but that's fine. We've got absolutely loads of onion seedlings anyway, so we can lose a few, that's fine. That's all for now. I will see you in the next one. I hope you all stay safe and happy gardening.